In this episode of Detroit Performs, an artist utilizes an old technology. A Detroit photographer and another photographer explores India. It's all ahead on this edition of Detroit Performs.
Funding for Detroit Performs is provided by Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Funding is also provided by the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs and the National Endowment for the Arts, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Detroit Performs. I'm your host, DJ Oliver, coming to you from the birthplace of the Model T, the Ford Paquette Avenue plant. I'll be going around and checking out all these historic vehicles throughout the show. But right now, let's check out our first artist, Semivan, who uses a camera that dates back to the era of the Model T to create some very interesting prints.
The photographer Jeff Wall talks about photographers as being either hunters or gatherers, and I definitely identify with the gatherer rather than the hunter. The large format view camera that I use dates from the early 20th century, and it's a very simple kind of primitive camera, which it's basically a box with a lens and a ground glass on the other end. So I have a large piece of black velvet that I use as a dark cloth to block out the light so that I can see the image that I'm photographing. And the camera takes 8x10 negatives. So the negative is much larger than, say, a 35mm or even medium format negative. And so as a result, there's much more capacity for detail. Often what I'm looking for as I'm photographing is a way to kind of suspend time itself, or to be able to say something that can't be said without the film and the act of photographing. Sometimes I will start with an idea based on literature, and then the composition evolves from there. All my photographs are made in the same studio, and they're incorporating painting and drawing and found objects, and sometimes the figure as a narrative tool. The set sort of evolves until it sort of devolves into the next picture. And so I really enjoy how the process is this continuous organic moment from one image to the next. This is an example of a set that was really pretty precariously constructed. So these are individual little sticks that were kind of pressed into the backdrop against the tulle fabric. I kind of enjoy the element of it could all fall apart at any moment. As I'm working, my concept of time is a little bit different in that everything is much slower pace, and there's a really intense kind of element of composition in working with the large format camera. You can sort of go under this black cloth and then see what you're photographing upside down and backwards, so it's sort of transposed in a way and removed from reality even further. So that always really interested in me, that I was sort of creating a totally new space that didn't exist in reality and that could only exist through the camera. And then that the finished product is not something that is really visible, or even I'm conscious of what's going to happen until I can see the final print or the negative. I have two sizes. One is 40x50. That size is quite large, and it's almost a one-to-one scale relationship with the viewer. And then the other way that I work is by contact printing the 8x10 negative to make a cyanotype. So the cyanotypes are made on basically a watercolor paper, and the emulsion is a mixture of two different light-sensitive chemicals. So I mix them together, and then you hand coat the paper with the emulsion, and then you allow the paper to dry in the total darkness. When the paper is dry, you can print the negative directly in contact with the paper in the sunlight. You leave the print in the sun for your exposure, and then you can wash it in water, and then you have your cyanotype. The show that I recently had at David Klein Gallery was titled Door into the Dark. And to me, this idea is more about the creative process as a pursuit of the unknown. The creative process is something that kind of connects people through time and space. And also, I think that as artists are making things, we don't necessarily always know what we're doing or what we're looking for, but we feel the need to create the thing, and to keep making it. So I feel the process is sort of the door into the dark. The painter Pierre Soulages talks about his black paintings as being more just representative of the forms that are in the paintings rather than about other ideas, or, they're non-representational, so they really can't be described in language. And I think a lot of art is that way. And that's the strength of art, is that we can't necessarily always explain or identify what may be happening when we look at a painting or any kind of image. So I would say that I hope that my viewer is able to kind of enter the photograph and have questions and things to think about and want to be in that space, but maybe not necessarily have a way out of the space, so that they can relate to it enough to sort of understand, but then maybe their questions are what keep them there or keep them looking at the piece. Maybe some people are more comfortable knowing the answers, and others are comfortable with not understanding exactly what is happening, but being engaged in it at the same time.
You can learn more about Lauren Semivan as well as all the artists we feature on DetroitPerforms.org. Artist Brian Day's aerial photography captures Detroit's iconic buildings from a different perspective. Check it out.
I was initially inspired by the work of Ansel Adams. His incredible attention to detail, especially with the black and white photography that he did, the expansion on tonal range and the images that he created was really inspiring to me. Of course, living in an urban area, I don't have the wilderness and mountains to photograph, and so I try to apply some of those principles from his incredible work in a city environment. The building behind me was designed by world-famous architect Mies van der Rohe. Detroit has an incredible history of architecture with gentlemen like Albert Kahn and many others who designed such iconic buildings here in Detroit that have been replicated around the world and have inspired many other works. And so I've tried to capture some of that work right here in Detroit. I prefer black and white photography because color photography is so pervasive, obviously, in the world today. And there are so many images that can be lost as a result of distractions due to color. So I like to eliminate those distractions and really focus on the quality of the composition, the tonal range, and the subject matter within the frame. And black and white allows me to do that. So I've had a wonderful time photographing my architecture series, but one of the natural limitations of photographing on a tripod is that my perspective is limited. And so I was really excited to have the opportunity to use drones and introduce aerial photography to really take a different perspective on some of these iconic buildings around the city. I try to do a little bit of research before I go out and shoot a drone image. In particular, I'll take, say, Google Maps and look at an overhead view of the city and kind of scroll around different neighborhoods and look for structures and areas that I think might be interesting. And then I try to think of the time of day that it might make sense to go where the light is best so that I can get the composition that I think I may want. But quite frequently I do find a surprise in the layout of a composition that I had no idea was there before I started. So it's quite interesting to discover new things as I shoot vertically with the drone. One of my favorite photographers, Gary Winogrand, who was a famous street photographer, often referred to his images as a problem and solving a problem. And I think that that's even more relevant today when there are so many photographers shooting the same things that it certainly is a challenge to look for a composition, to look for an image that perhaps hasn't been done 100 times before and that hasn't been sort of worn down and desensitize viewers to it. So I do think of my photography and compositions that I look for as a problem, as a challenge. How do I look at this in a new way and maybe present it in a certain way that's more interesting than I have in the past? I like to bring out the nuance of the subject that I'm photographing, but also apply some of my creative thought on the image as well. So I try to stay in between a range where the image has some interpretation, but that it's not lost, the subject is not lost in the frame. So I love drone photography, I love architecture photography, but street photography is a completely different challenge. You can't control any of the variables and factors on the street other than when you press the shutter. And so that's something that I'll always continue to do no matter what other projects I get involved in. I do think that my photography has been influenced by some of my technical training over the years. I've been involved in photography for about 9 years now, but throughout the course of my work career, I've been trained in physics and computers and things like that. So I think that the thinking around precision with respect to my job has influenced the thinking around precision with my photography as well. And maybe some of that comes across in the compositions and the structures and the way that I see things with respect to my images. Part of the reason much of my photography is focused on the city of Detroit is I think that there's been a series of narratives around Detroit's story over the years. And if you go back maybe 10 years or so, the dominant narrative of Detroit was a city in ruins, a city in collapse. And today, in many conversations, the narrative is on the other extreme, that Detroit is just this awesome city and it's completely come back and it's great for everyone. What I think my pictures hope to depict is a balanced narrative, that while there are wonderful things about the city, there are also some challenges that still need to be addressed. And so I hope that people look at the images objectively and can appreciate the balance in the narrative of the city of Detroit.
What's up, guys? I am here at the Ford Piquette Avenue plant with the executive director, Nancy Darga. How you doing, Nancy?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
So tell our viewers out there a little bit about the history of this Ford Piquette Avenue plant.
Well, this is the beginning of the Ford Motor Company in 1904. Henry actually had some rented space on Mack Avenue, but this is the first plant he built for the company. And it's really gratifying because he failed at several ventures prior to coming here. But this is the birthplace of the Model T, and it's also where the original Ford Alphabet cars were made. And those cars are actually all assembled here at the Ford Piquette plant for the public to experience.
All right, so we're in the secret room here at this Ford Piquette Avenue
Yes,
plant? I know, keep that quiet, guys.
We're in the secret experimental room. Wow.
Can you secretly tell us about this room?
Yes, yes, let me tell you. Henry had this room built, and he only allowed about 7 people in here, including himself and his 14-year-old son, Edsel. And it took him around 9 months, but they ended up inventing the Model T because Henry wanted, the Model N was very successful for him, but he wanted to go that next step further to make a affordable, indestructible car for the masses, and that was the Model T.
Well, it's such a unique car. It actually has, what, 3 pedals? Can you talk about that? Like, what is actually
Well, the
each
first
pedal
version
do?
of it had 3 pedals, but then, as you know, he's improving each model after that, and he originally comes out with a 2-pedal, and then he comes out with the 3-pedal, which involves reverse.
So what happens here at the Ford Piquette Avenue plant? This is a gym that's been here for a long time. What goes on here today?
We want people to reconnect to the innovations that actually launched the auto era and reconnect people to the incredible progress that was made here in the Milwaukee Junction area of Detroit, but specifically at the Ford Piquette plant. Now, some museums have all these gizmos and stuff, but when you come to the Ford Piquette plant, you are standing on the floor that Henry Ford walked upon, and you are experiencing the actual original setting that these guys worked in. It kind of gives a lot of our visitors goosebumps.
Absolutely.
When they come in.
I can tell you firsthand that you guys definitely want to come and check it out because it is definitely just powerful to be here. Also, one last question, Nancy. What's your favorite part about working here?
The people. 2017 we had 20,000 visitors, but since 2013 we had 89 countries come through here. And it's amazing the people who make pilgrimages here from all over the world to see where the Model T was invented and where Henry Ford really got his start. And you have to know that he just didn't work here alone. As we say, he had a winning team.
Well, it's definitely a winning team for Detroit, so we're all thankful to hear that. So thank you, Nancy. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, guys, now let's check out some upcoming events happening in and around the D. For more than 30 years, New York-based photographer Steve McCurry has traveled the world creating iconic photographs of vanishing traditions, armed conflict, and contemporary life.
I went to India when I was 27. I had worked on a local newspaper outside of Philadelphia for a couple years, and I was getting a bit bored. I wanted to travel. I wanted to photograph in various cultures. I just bought a one-way ticket, went to India, and I was going to just stay there as long as it took. Now, India has such an incredible depth of culture. There's so many contradictions. There's so many people, the geography, the religions. It's just rich. You can spend several lifetimes and never really get to the bottom of it. India is one of the most spiritual places in the world. These festivals and these events, these religious events, are central to life of the people. You just see them on the street. Well, this is really the lifeblood of the country. I was in the city of Jodhpur during Holi. There was this group of villagers who were performing, throwing color. They had this one man who they painted green. I happened to be on a wall. I was trying to stay out of the fray because it was just, so many people and so much color. They picked this fellow up to take him somewhere, and I took some pictures of him as they were moving through the crowd. I think it's one of my more successful color pictures. I wanted to do a long-term project on the train journey in India. Eventually I got an assignment to go and do this story. And lo and behold, the writer was Paul Theroux. So here I am with this great author, and we're going off on this adventure to travel by train through India. And the first thing that I thought about was, I wonder if by any chance the train goes anywhere near the Taj Mahal. It turned out that not only does the train go by the Taj Mahal, there was an entire railroad yard next to the Taj. So I spent a week in Agra looking for the right angle, the right time, checking train schedules, and made this picture of these workers on the steam locomotive with the Taj in the background. I don't think it had ever been photographed that way before. I did this story on the monsoon. One of the dramatic things of the monsoon season is that there's an incredible heat buildup. The wind blows, the dust storms come up, And so the monsoon is a relief. I was in the city of Port Bunder photographing the monsoon during one of the floods, and I was up to my chest in water. And as I was kind of wading through the streets, I saw this man walking down with a sewing machine on his shoulder, and it seemed so odd and so surreal. Everybody from around the neighborhood started alerting this man that there's this photographer going to take your picture, so smile for the camera. He has this rusted sewing machine, which was from his shop, and it's destroyed, but yet he's almost up to his neck in water with his smile. The best part of the story was that the German manufacturer of the sewing machine saw this picture and tracked him down and sent him a new sewing machine. I love portraiture. I love photographing people. I love the human face. I love the stories that are etched into people's faces. There's certain people I see as I'm walking around on the street that inspire me, and I want to tell that story. I want to photograph that particular person. When you make the portrait, you come with that enthusiasm, with that passion, and you can get into a relationship, into kind of a zone where you create this incredible chemistry and this great connection. It doesn't matter so much how long you spend with this person. It could be a few moments, but somehow you establish this connection, and sometimes great things can happen, and you can really make a picture which really reveals something about that person's personality, kind of dig deep into their soul. What I think I want people to take away from this show or my pictures in general is there's this commonality of humanity that we share, and although we may look differently or have different religions or speak different languages, we're all human and we're all from the same kind of family. So this sort of shared experience of being alive at this particular time, I think this is a look at the world while I was alive, and this is what I saw. I think I spent my life in the best possible way.
And that wraps it up for this edition of Detroit Performs. As always, for more arts and culture, head to DetroitPerforms.org, where you'll find featured videos, blogs, and information on upcoming arts events. Also, check us out on Facebook and Twitter. I'd like to thank the Ford Briquette plant for having us out here today. Until next Tuesday, make sure you get out there and show the world how Detroit performs, y'all. I'm DJ Oliver. Thanks for watching, guys.
Funding for Detroit Performs is provided by Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Funding is also provided by the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs and the National Endowment for the Arts, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.